Blog Talk Radio.
Peace, family. It's your boy Lukey over here at Life Food, Long Island. My pleasure today is to introduce to you the incredible, the amazing Dr. David Jubb, with the universe inside our mind. Dr. Jubb, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the program.
Right. Oh, yeah, it's so amazing. Our programs that we're doing, and I hope everybody's been enjoying the show that's all about Native American and Toltec living spirits amongst us and your beingness here, yeah. But it's so amazing, you know. But it's a time again, of course, for the milk and cookies. Hopefully that's Life Food. But anyway, but you know, and you've had your milk and cookies and things, and it's time to relax and you know, the story from the teaching and teacher, yeah. But it's amazing, Lukey, you know, when the native Toltec living spirits engage in this divination, you know. They love to use dream catchers, and they see these dream catchers in their minds, you know. It's like being able to see a dewdrop, you know, in a web, and just see the light glinting in that in the morning, you know. That's amazing. But the dream catcher and the process really is associated with catching, you know, what's beneficial and holding on to this, you know what I mean? And just sort of letting go of things, everything else, you know. But it's amazing, you know, we're sort of really coming to this world and we're sort of really one, and so beautiful, you know, and then sort of two could have happened and three sort of thing, you know, and it's so nice to bring all this back into one and seeing this happening and how beautiful it is. People say to me that after hearing the show that they just burn up for days afterward with, you know, deep insight and that. But what's really mutually beneficial, you know, this is really what truth is, and then you just discarding everything else, because why have something that's not truth, you know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, but we were talking a little about the willow, you know, and that being really beautifully symbolic of wood, and how you would, and it's amazing that the ancient ones use wood in their story, you know, and they use sort of branches to join things together a bit, but they always use wood as an energy, you know, to connect with heaven. So Earth sort of was connecting with heaven so beautifully. The trees are here. We should do everything we can to make sure the way our living is to assist to help the trees. Yeah. But anyway, the willow really would carries beautifully this water. You know what I mean? Oh, mate, it's so amazing. But powerfully, and it's sort of hooped so nicely, you know, and it expresses a gorgeous intelligence, and that bending and the warping of the fabric, of course, it really causes everything to be that's other than supported, sort of really just falling in, you know what I mean? And that's so amazing. Things are falling in, and people can be relaxing and so nice actually that you can feel even gravity drawing you ever more in, But our lips, we do really have people listening and very much into life food and nutrition and that. But our lips really shape nutrient, being brought in, and I think we've been talking a bit about that. But anyway, a lot of this sort of really came quite a bit as a result of my connecting in with Cloud, and she's the ceremonial chief here in Native America, and she represents all of Native America, and she is of Atlantean descent, coming directly from the Seminole and the Creek Indians practice the Toltec teaching sort of quite fiercely in our story, and they really was reminding everyone of their originalness in themselves, and to renounce sort of the outside a bit and go inside and find this beautiful integration. Yeah, but this was called the Nagul in the native tongue, and the Seminole. They made zigzag sorts of patterns we've been talking a little bit about to define vibration and energy, and they had other sorts of shapes and things and sounds and that. But a lot of this is so amazing, as we've been talking in our show, how it correlates with the Dogons in Africa, the Minoan civilization in Greece during the same period of time, and Poverty Point here in America, which is the New York City of the Americas back then. But in the Seminole Yuwipil tradition, the pattern ceremonial cloth sort of had squares, and these squares again sort of represented space. And the Dreamcatcher, of course, represented this sort of divination. And they would use symbols to just sort of cause us to be able to see what was going on. But as you could see the Dreamcatcher being compressed in space, becoming ever smaller, and then that Fibonacci, which exists, becomes sort of even circular, and objects become weightless. And there's no acceleration, and things have gone beyond, of course, the speed of light in our perception, which is only limited as a result of the body being able to perceive things with its resonance at the speed of light. But anyway, a great deal of insight really went into the traditional Yuwipil ceremonial fabric. And then their language is kept in the story alive, through these symbols and sound and storytelling. And it wasn't really easy for people to have turn their feelings off, and wasn't really easy much really for people to turn their hearing off, But as things became written ever more and things such, we could decide not to look at that, and our ability to feel ourself inside versus out, and this envision is really important. You're using your visual sense, and in this story. But anyway, where everything sort of really has its beginnings, we've been talking a little bit about these 7 rays, which is these 7 colours in the rainbow, and in the story that's told about an egg, of course, that precedes this, and that the energetics within the egg and the 7th ray sort of expanded enough to pop into another frequency, like a band, and this 8th band sort of splitting the 7 and releasing the energy within to fractalize into this Fibonacci pattern in space. And we're talking about the fabric of space, which is superluminal, which electrons are made up out of, the particles of electrons. and protons, and the living spirit in Atlantean times really is considered this awakener and known as a divine seer, and to really amass beautiful offerings in provision as pattern. And Naguls really energetically really perceive these seven coloured rays with a background note of the universe, which is happens to be a B flat. Anyway, the form and the force of this figure 8, that we have talked about earlier, and that open space between the two circles is a neutral point. And energy passes out from that neutral point. And learning more about this, we can talk a bit about our anti-gravity as it comes to be. But this story, we could be talking a bit about picture, a little bit, and sound. But the story in the pictogram, in its woven ceremonial cloth in the Seminole, was made to put the story in the creation of I and matter as Am formation, and giving a structure to consider sort of what's balanced, in our being, what is I and what is Am. And 50% of yourself is supposed to be this I in balance, of course, and Am another 50% exactly. And I is this empty space, which is eternal, and Am is the body and the moon and the sound of the crickets as part of our body. And this is called caring, which we can talk about these sounds. But we're talking in Atlantean tongue as you're listening to these sounds. But understanding the Atlantean teaching of I awareness is incurring for us as a listening, in our listening, by defining convention within language and shape and symbol, that we can begin to have a syntax forming ever more powerfully now, once and forever and for all time, in understanding how through this geometrics you can be more fully as I am. So I am really comes more in the form of a flying fish shape. It's sort of got its skeleton inside and flesh on the outside, and its shape it's swum and flown here. It doesn't have to do swimming or anything. Its shape, but this is happening on a subliminal, very superluminal level of existence, of I coming into being, forming as Am in this third dimension, at the speed of light, which we can perceive. But we're capturing this with our consciousness, slowing it down, and then causing things to vibrate and grow and come into consciousness. But Cloud said that the shape of the mound, at Poverty Point, was a beautiful shape of this gorgeous flying fish, and the animal and the plant life forms all sort of really being applied, and intelligence really form a gorgeous language. And I'm really connecting in with you here. We're in the Palisades, the Pacific Palisades, in a gorgeous little valley. We've got trees all around us, and we've just had a good mate, Cam, come in from England, and we're sitting in the forest with another mate, and we just really the nature and the sounds of nature is so amazing. But of course, we can hear a little bit of city as well. But anyway, are you there, Lukey?
Sounds good to me, Doc.
Good. Well, anyway, look, the Native American Indians, they really just had a really expression of the finest form of the ether, which is the winds, and mastery of this is the bird, the flying fish, of course, in the Atlantean tradition, and a significantly broad appeal, of course, and mastery over the ether, and shaping things, creating space and shape. but yet the Seneca, of course, is the snake clan, and we've got the bear clan, and wolf and fox, and these all have very highly significant teachings and this sort of thing. And I think we got to a little bit is all just in our backtrackingness. So we're on track where we are. Is we've been talking a little bit about the setting up of all the chiefdoms and the trading in shiny bone that was going on, and exchanging it for soapstone that the Atlanteans were doing there, and coming frequently, and staying gorgeously in these foam houses. And it sort of was funny to them even today. They called them foam houses because they really could see a house there, it was on the water. I think, well, that's amazing, and see a bit of foam in front of it. So it just came into their tongue, that they called these foam houses. But in other programs, we could talk a little bit about, of course, the anti-gravity craft in the time before the first sun. But Jaws all of a sudden arrive, not slowly, I mean, you're explaining how all of a sudden, bam, you've got Jaws on the earth. You know what I mean? I mean, before that point, there's no Jaws. You know what I mean? So things that sort of actually do come in an order, and so does sound and shape and these sorts of things, and how sound affects what can form in space. So in the fossil record, of course, Jaws all of a sudden, bam, they arrive. However, of course, you've got things with legs and exoskeletal types of structures with sounds like cat. You've got external sort of finishedness of sound and skeletal structure on the outside. But the crab and the beetle and the insect, of course, they go way back in our perception of I am. And as we've been noting, the first shape that's given as a sonic dimension is the flying fish for I am and consciousness, because it's sort of more a consciousness of a vertebrate, an invertebrate with flesh around itself, and then it's got some things developed as well. But this shape causes it to be just swum here. But you could imagine just seeing right now a fish go straight up a waterfall, like a couple hundred feet straight up, and it went, and as fast as the water was falling down on its nose, it propelled the fish up. And so this is what's happening on this level, Lukey, you see, in the fabric of space. And the subatomic shape and the moment of the fabric of space is pierced by this eighth ray, and these Fibonacci fractals occur in the patterning of space, and this quantum level, a four-legged wolf animal-like image is defined very clearly, dancing, because you've got a spot between light and sound, where sound causes things to come alive that you're looking at, all of a sudden they're dancing. And so you've got a wolf shape, and then you have Po. And Po is, it's equivalent to a proton, atoms and electrons and things. Anyway, the invisible sort of really is made visible more as an atom, and because these seven rays were pierced by this eighth ray, and then this first type of body we see around us is a symbol of a wild goose, and this is symbolic of first life forms of I am, and in language, and was ways to represent I and am. Of course, people look at that and think, oh, that's just a bit of artwork or lovely, but actually, I could write to you something in Native American, and by using symbols, but the cosmological assigned significance of similar sort of four-legged animals, and then there's these four significant symbols, of course, which is the crab and insect, and that's one. And then you've got the fish and dog and bird. But the crab is the oldest mound, of course, that's dated in Florida, and that goes back, 5,000 BCE. But water is the source of, during this period of time of our story, but water is the source of creation and it's commonly being spoken in the native lodge. And crab and water beetle are known really by the natives as the water is really the source of creation. And the coyote in America, of course, and the dingo in Australia, they're really symbols of also a disruptive force. And a volcano and these things all are part of nature. And you've got, disruptive forces like tornadoes and things, and other forces which we've been talking about, which is even cosmic impacts. But the bear, turtle, and wolf, and deer, and bird clans all have a very amazing intelligence. And a note would be missing, you see, if they're not here. All right? It's very important. We could feel a sense of a sadness a little also, because some of this teaching can only be received by you, that you can feel some grief for the loss of the things going on, around us. But the tetrachromatic Cro-Magnon really is in fourth dimension. We've been talking a bit about, and they very easily are applying this insight now from this observedness. And Homo sapiens trichromatics, more three-dimensional, based sort of in Atlantean mythology, and a bit of a mixture of the two, sort of what we have a little, can be easily sorted out. But excellence really taught within the life form structure with reasoned language applied excellently to initiate by seeing sort of the things that's invisible and happening more on this fourth dimension, to have an awareness more awakened. But Cloud really, she talked about the nummo, representing the vacuum vortex of space, unformed primordial strings that fill space like a water. And harmonics as waves in this water, and is a sound of the body allowing you to perceive new, you see. So is vibration, is like I, and so this is first, of course, as a sound, and coming in from high to low, you see. And they would even have very high pitchedness in the lodge, and this represented the body allowing us to perceive, and nu is another way of sounding this as well, and these are ways of saying I, and they all are doing different things. There's a vibration very finely, and u is a collecting and raising of the energy, and to create I, and is the body to combine and represent God, being I am. And this invisible body you have inside, everything does, is applying light or being arrived here now. Just as fast as water really does rush right down that waterfall, fish can have been swum instantly here on this level, superluminally. Yes. So, beyond the level of the atom. But as you're bringing weightless. But as you're bringing what sort of harvested to the table, you're really far more accepted, in your beingness. And the shape of this fish being swum, it sort of really doesn't do the swimming. It doesn't, it's effortless. So this is the path of least resistance. Is our recording going okay, mate, sound-wise?
The sound is wonderful.
Okay.
Time is just flying by.
Thank you. And we have a little bit more time, eh? Sounds like just 5 minutes, but I know a bit more time passed than that. But we'll keep going. But the language symbolism really is affirmed by string theory and astrophysicists, and the number shape certainly invisibly being swum off and flown to get to Earth explicates more about cosmic unformed waves by actually really seeing them, and they can be really caused to grow and change in size. And if we really see cymatically, how sound really sort of can really radically change shape, and integrate itself. You've got to really get into the 432 and get rid of all 440 and all Travistock stuff, because they've really not been doing the right thing with all that, just creating the yeast in people's bodies. But that get into the 432, tune into this. But to begin and dance and move around, you really got to allow all this to be working, within yourself. You really have to inquire how a flying fish is flowing. It really doesn't do the flying. Its shape flies. It's weightless. It's frictionless. Its shape propels it forward. It's ultra fast time, and that's a human brain. Really, it's not fast enough to process that. And that speed we're talking about here is so fast, no acceleration really is existing, and mass really is less particle perceived because the resonance really is only a reception. But you're slowing things down, and we're slowing things down by bringing them into consciousness, and the friction grid, and this particle we're talking about gains weight. And yet in perception we're sort of instantaneous and beyond the 186,000 miles per second, which goes around the Earth 7 times in a second. The light sort of really stopped and even dripped, just like water, mate, Yeah. But anyway, water's so fast it's you're looking at the landscape out there in space, and you've got sort of waterfalls, trees, landscapes. We often only are trained to look at light, but enormous amount of dark energy. But that could be for another program, because that's all what we really have. But what's so fast that slows down enough can be seen, mate, you know what I mean? And has weight and tangible. Yet really is like monatomic element and in the life colloid and the white gold and Jubb's white gold. I mean, this has been given to the priests, taking over several months of itself, really does assist to help shift everything more for you. But ultra-fast waves, it's no longer really ultra-fast, vibrate and increase in mass. And the collarbone and your pelvic bone, they really work in collaboration. And they have little holes that shape like a twin door to assist this dual matter of nature we have around us, with the dog star Sirius and us being in a binary system compressed in space. So perception can really move massless beautifully, the colloid of life, which you've got to read Secrets of an Alkaline Body and a little bit learn more about this, which is way beyond Darwinism. It just sort of crashes Darwin to the ground as being just like a dinosaur, just petrified, just cast in stone, mate, you know what I mean? Not really like this living blood and warmth amongst us here. This is Tuncushula. And Christians call him Caesar or Christ, which is the same sort of word. Anyway, but the collarbone and the pelvic bone work in collaboration to shape this beautiful twin door to assist this dual matter of nature in this Toltec teaching. And the perception moves in a massless colloid of life out of its time and into slowed visual perception. And primordial waves that make up I in the shape start to shape and can transform magically into heavy or light particles, as monatomic elements certainly have been shown to do, as they oxidize depending upon sort of the temperature. And the absolute stillness occurs at absolute 0 Kelvin. But that's 500 degrees below freezing where we are, and Earth's really expanding, and so space where we are and all sort of getting less dense. And so you're seeing space really not so uniform, yet really enfolded and bent in on itself, and like the Earth is, and civilization, and even the sea covering over, ancient civilization and that, which we can take you to show you these things. But could you imagine a huge waterfall and gigantic landscape invisible in space on another dimension? And this is sort of beyond the 7.23 centimetre dimension we're sort of viewing things with. But the average size of all sort of measurable in the human perception and defects can detect really in this third dimension. Yet eye awareness really is beyond anything you've ever felt. It's awareness that you have beyond the things you've heard before. And it's beyond the things that you've seen before. Yeah, and so this is an awareness that we have. So you've got water as an ether pushed in past the gills of the fish, you see, and the shape of it slips it gradually in towards the fish's tail and just propels it, mate, so damn fast. Unbelievable. A bit like a flying saucer or the shape of your lips, but bending gravity. But anyway, space is fast as what comes against it to weightlessness of no acceleratedness felt. So what's sent invisibly to Earth sort of throughout the universe is sort of infinite. And there's a morphogenetic field that's present and infinite to find its niche. And it slows down and it starts to vibrate, And this is life. It's a beautiful confluence, 432. And it slows and grows in its size and form, and its projected morphogenic field bursts out from life upon its death. And this is a bardo consciousness where you can have awareness of the connectedness to all. And native tradition is to have gone there, thousands of times really, to be perfectly understanding everything. So there is no light between your left and your right hemisphere, basically. And no light between us as we're communicating here. Because you're in this universal colloid of life as a biophotosonic living spirit sort of assembled, you're into life colloid, which really the average intestinal tract has more double spore and other assembled symbiotic sort of life colloid more than in your earth garden you're wrapped around. Now, than is in the all cells of your body. And we have more life colloid, than the stars in this galaxy, and the Atlanteans had such sophistication and structure called a granary that they built to enhance growth of even seeds and plants and fruit. And the ancient Atlanteans built towers in agricultural lands, to assist with paramagnetic forces. And they really did this in the same way with increased ionization. And this was equivalent to powerful antioxidants being produced, in the seed, in the listening, and Venus and these plants controlled energy on the inside of the seed, on the inside of the earth, and then Mars and Jupiter and these planets on the outside affecting the shape of everything on the outside. But clean energy really is an energy of electricity, which the Atlanteans really had very sophisticated insight into and applied beautifully. And they left this earth behind the same way they found it, mate, for 1,000 years ago. Yeah. And they traded in rocks, and they fashioned in stone, and they chipped away, things, and they made shapes of birds and owls and things. But this is a very sophisticated insight I'm sharing with you, and this Atlanteans had such, anyway, look, Atlanteans, what they left a long time ago was really, this is the time before things was destroyed by cosmic impact. Are you there?
All the way, baby.
Yes. Well, I think in our next program, if that's okay, we can talk a little about eye awareness and what it means in the Toltec tradition to be balanced in our being. And we can talk about the throat, the mouth, the nose sounds, and the creator of the weaver. We can talk about various sounds and Fibonacci fractals, and we could talk about how this energy sort of comes through even Faraday cages it so fast, and this is the ether, because electromagnetic energy is stopped by all that, And it's really a random universe that is of non-random result, and that this is what this program really is all about. So we're going to be talking about sounds in our program as we do forward, and how this creates shape in space and the formation of I am. Anyway, this is Dr. David Jubb. This is Lukey. We've really been doing everything we can to bring great information to you, and that we're coming online again. We'll put things together by tuning into the shows that we are doing, and we've got a great network, and people really care very much. If you're listening and you care very much to help with the art, please connect in with Lukey or Will straight away. Anyway, love you guys. I'm really caring very much for us to catch up with each other same time. You guys, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow, and then perhaps for you who are listening, you can click a button and tune in to another show. Love you guys. Catch up with you in the future.
Shine.